On a quiet night in sunny Florida, Emily, a young social worker, finds herself entangled in a mystery that would change her life forever. It all starts simply. She hears a noise coming from the kitchen and upon investigating finds a skinny boy, no older than 8, stealing food from her house. With a mix of surprise and concern, she decides to follow the boy through the city streets, and what she discovers next will leave her devastated and with an unexpected mission. In her search for answers, Emily encounters a story of suffering, sacrifices, and dark secrets involving a broken family and a web of dangerous lies. Unaware that her own past was about to intertwine with the story of these two young ones, Emily finds herself forced to make tough decisions. Following the boy to an abandoned house, she stumbles upon something even more disturbing. The child, named Jack, wasn't alone. Next to him, a girl, Lily, apparently his sister, was in an even more desperate situation. The two children were starving, dirty, and visibly hurt. But the worst was yet to come, as Emily soon discovers that the two are presumed dead after a devastating fire, and their family, who supposedly perished, was actually in hiding, surviving in a dangerous game of lies and fears. At this point, Emily finds herself torn between doing what's right and risking herself in a situation she never imagined facing. The secrets that Jack and Lily keep are deeper than she could have guessed, and she's about to uncover a network of fraud and betrayal that puts everyone's lives at risk. Determined to protect the kids and understand what really happened on the night of the fire, Emily decides she can't stay silent. With each step she takes towards the truth, the tension grows, and she soon realizes that to save these children, she'll have to confront her own past and deal with the painful choices of the present. When Emily decides to follow the skinny boy through the city, she has no idea of the impact this decision will have on her life. The quiet streets of Florida are empty and gloomy, and with each step she feels more anxious and at the same time more determined. What she feels isn't just curiosity, but a strong need to understand the reality behind that small face. The journey takes Emily to a hidden alley where, among trash cans and abandoned boxes, Jack enters a dilapidated house. Emily, without hesitation, cautiously approaches and peeks through the broken window, where she witnesses a scene that baffles her. The boy is sharing the stolen food with a girl, a scene of sweetness amidst chaos, but also of visible pain. She decides to act, not just to understand, but to protect these children who are clearly in a desperate situation. Emily, now with a heavy heart, can no longer ignore the reality. When the child looks at her, surprised at being discovered, Emily musters up courage and slowly approaches, trying not to scare him more than he already was. Jack, frightened, reveals that his name is Jack and that he and his sister, Lily, are running from something much bigger than simple hunger. They had nowhere to go, and the streets became their only refuge. When Emily asks about their parents, Jack hesitates and with a trembling voice says they're dead, but something in the way he speaks, an evasiveness in his gaze, makes Emily suspicious. She knows there's more to this story than he's willing to tell. After a moment of silence, Jack reveals that there's something in his nightmares that makes him believe his parents are still alive. Emily, stunned, decides to press on and offer help, even if it means diving into a world of mystery and danger. Emily promises to return. She brings food for the children, and as she leaves the abandoned house, her mind races. How can these two little ones be alone, wandering the city, when they should be protected somewhere safe? Jack's voice, asking her to take care of Lily, echoes in Emily's mind, and she knows she can't simply let this go. Determined, she resolves to investigate further, even if her own limits and insecurities are pushed to the extreme. She'll dig into every clue, even if it puts her at risk. Knowing that the truth could be much darker than she imagines, Emily prepares to face the consequences of her actions. For her, what's at stake is not only saving these children, but also bringing to light what's being hidden from everyone. In the following days, Emily can't stop thinking about Jack and Lily. With each step she takes through the city, her heart tightens, and the idea that those children are experiencing something much deeper and more painful begins to take over her mind. She decides to investigate more about the fire that allegedly killed the children's parents, but upon arriving at the local police station, she realizes something's off. The officer on duty, a middle-aged man, looks at her curiously as she asks her questions. He hands her an old file, and the words that come out of his mouth confirm something Emily wasn't prepared to hear. mother. According to the official report, the children's parents died in the fire and they were considered missing or dead. However, Emily feels something's wrong. Not only does the fire itself seem to have left more questions than answers, but the way the officer seems to dodge her questions makes her feel there's more behind this story. With her mind full of doubts, Emily finds herself forced to go to the neighborhood where the fire occurred. The old, faded houses seem to hold secrets, but an elderly lady calls to her from her porch and starts chatting with her. Emily, reluctantly, decides to talk about the fire and ask what she knew about the Gutierrez family, Jack and Lily's parents. The lady, with a grave voice full of mystery, reveals something that makes Emily's heart beat faster. She claims to have seen Mercedes, the children's mother, a few days after the fire, walking the streets, visibly frightened and looking over her shoulder as if she was being pursued. The lady also says that the police treated her like she was crazy when she reported this, which further increases the suspicion that something isn't right. Emily doesn't know what to believe anymore, but she's now more convinced that somehow Mercedes is still alive. With this new information, Emily is more determined than ever to uncover the truth. She feels she's being pulled into a labyrinth of lies, where each discovery brings more questions than answers. The elderly lady mentions that the Gutierrez family had been part of something bigger, something wrapped up in fraud and crime. Mercedes wasn't dead, she was hiding. But why? And who else was involved? Emily feels the weight of responsibility growing as she decides that instead of stepping away, she needs to get closer to this story. She resolves to confront Carlos, Jack and Lily's father and demand answers. But even she knows that this confrontation could be much more dangerous than anything she's ever faced before. Emily finally arrives at Carlos's house. The surroundings seem too quiet and the weight of the situation takes hold of her. She knew the moment of confronting Carlos would be crucial, but she hadn't imagined how difficult it would be. When she knocks on the door and he receives her, the tension between them is palpable. Carlos, with eyes tired and marked by time and suffering, observes her with a mixture of caution and shame. Emily, her heart racing, begins to question him about the fire, Mercedes' death, and how he fits into this web of lies and fraud. She knew he knew more than he was telling, but she also felt that for some reason he wanted to open up. The conversation starts tense, but soon he surrenders and decides to tell his version of the story. Carlos begins to reveal his story in a fragmented way, full of regret and pain. "I never wanted this to happen," he says, his voice trembling. "After the fire, everything turned into a nightmare. Mercedes and I got involved in things we couldn't get out of. Fraud, lies, and dangerous people." With every word he says, Emily feels a mix of anger and empathy. She knows he made wrong choices, but she also realizes that he's genuinely sorry. He talks about the pressure he was under to protect the family and how much his life fell apart after things spiraled out of control. He recounts how he got involved in an insurance fraud ring, trying to make quick money to pay for urgent treatment for Lily, who, until then, had a serious heart condition. Emily feels a growing pain as she hears this and realizes that the children were in a constant struggle to survive, but still don't know the full extent of the tragedy surrounding them. Emily, now with a heavy heart, finds herself at a crossroads. She knows that the only way to really help Jack and Lily, to ensure a safe future for them, is to force Carlos to do the right thing. "You need to turn yourself in," Emily says, her voice firm. "I understand your reasons, but to protect these children, you need to clear your name and stop this fraud ring. We can't keep running." Carlos hesitates with a conflicted look, but deep down, he knows she's right. Guilt, regret, and fear suffocate him, but Emily doesn't let him distance himself from reality. She gives him the option to do what's right and save the children, or completely lose himself in his own mistake. With a deep sigh, Carlos agrees. He knows that although he's made many mistakes in the past, there's still time to make things right and give his children a chance at a normal life. After a moment of hesitation, Carlos finally makes the decision that will change the course of his life and that of his children. He turns himself into the police, but at a price. Carlos, his family's life is still in danger. Emily, now more involved than ever, follows every step of the journey, determined to ensure that Jack and Lily aren't victims of their father's mistake. The situation, however, isn't as simple as it seemed. With the help of Isabel Vega, a federal agent Emily sought for support, they begin to put together a plan to dismantle the fraud network Carlos had been involved in, but they also had to act quickly. Isabel, with her sharp eye and experience, starts gathering information, and soon Emily realizes she's closer than ever to uncovering the truth. But what she didn't know was that this move would draw them into an even bigger confrontation, where everyone's lives would be at risk. Tension grows as the group begins to move, aware that danger could approach at any moment. Emily and Isabel meet with the network of contacts that can lead to the criminal's downfall, and meanwhile, Carlos stays with the children, ensuring they remain safe. But time is short, and with each move, they know that at any moment someone could be watching. The scenario is about to change, and Emily feels adrenaline taking over as the confrontation approaches. The city seems like a concrete jungle, where every corner hides more secrets, and every step could be fatal. The weight of knowing that at any moment the truth could destroy everything she believed to be right leaves Emily's heart in tatters, but also with a determination stronger than ever. She'll go to the end to protect those children. Emily's mission, which initially seemed to be a simple attempt to save two children, has now transformed into an epic battle against a network of fraud and corruption that threatens to destroy innocent lives. When the moment to act finally arrives, Emily takes the lead, guiding the group with courage and wisdom. With the support of Isabel and police contacts, the network begins to crumble, one step at a time. The tension in the air is palpable, and the clock seems to be running against them. But amid the adrenaline and chaos, Emily knows that regardless of what happens, she made the right choice. When the confrontation reaches its peak and the truth is finally exposed, she feels a mixture of relief and sadness. The battle for justice is long and difficult, but in the end, Emily is certain that Jack and Lily will have a chance to restart their lives, far from the horrors they've lived through. With the fraud network finally dismantled and the police in possession of the evidence, the sense of relief Emily felt was almost tangible. However, as she watched Jack and Lily getting used to their new reality and beginning to understand that they were, in fact, safe, the weight of what was still to come hit her hard. Carlos, now imprisoned, still carried the weight of his own mistakes, but there was a slight hope in his eyes when he looked at Emily for the last time. He knew that his journey of redemption was just beginning and that the road would be long. But above all, he knew he had done the right thing by finally turning himself in and stopping the fraud network that had put his family in danger. Emily, in turn, felt that by choosing to fight for truth and justice, she had begun her own journey of healing, not just for herself, but also for the children she now saw as part of her family. Carlos's trial was set, and although he had cooperated with the authorities, the consequences of his mistakes still needed to be faced. Emily knew that regardless of what happened in court, nothing could erase the suffering he had caused, but at the same time, she couldn't help but feel a hint of compassion. He was no longer the man who had disappeared with his ex-wife's company money. He had transformed one step at a time and was now trying to correct his mistakes by all possible means. She knew her mission wouldn't end when the trial was over. Somewhere deep inside, Emily knew she needed to continue being an advocate for the children and help them deal with the invisible scars they still carried. As Carlos's trial took place and he prepared to face his sentence, Emily watched Jack and Lily with caring eyes. They were gradually adjusting to their new life. Jack, now calmer, had a seriousness beyond his years, but Emily felt that he was beginning to find some comfort, albeit shy, in his new reality. Lily, in turn, was starting to show more signs of confidence. She, who previously seemed fragile and scared, now played more with other children and smiled genuinely, although fear was still present in her eyes at times. But Emily knew that the real work was just beginning. She was no longer just the social worker who took care of children. Now she was a protector, a foster mother, someone who would do whatever it took to ensure that these children were no longer victims of a flawed system and a society that often fails the most vulnerable. With Carlos's trial finally coming to an end and the 5-year prison sentence confirmed, Emily knew that her new family's life was at a critical transition point. Although Carlos was being held accountable for his crime, he would still still be an important part of Jack and Lily's lives, even from a distance. Emily, now with a new perspective on what really mattered, focused on helping the children find stability. Jack and Lily's emotional recovery wouldn't be quick, but Emily was determined to ensure that regardless of the difficulties, they would never again feel the pain of abandonment. They had survived the worst, and she, with patience and dedication, would help heal the invisible wounds they carried. The new routine for Emily and the children was gradually becoming established. She enrolled Jack and Lily in the local school, aiming to give them a sense of normalcy and belonging. Jack, with his serious nature, began to excel in various subjects, showing a sharp intelligence that he had never had the opportunity to develop before. Lily, more shy, found solace in arts and music, expressing herself creatively while still battling fears from the past. But Emily knew that as much as their lives were beginning to stabilize, the path to recovery would be full of challenges. However, the love and trust that were beginning to bloom between them were their greatest allies on this journey. With the help of professionals and support from friends, Emily also began working to ensure a safer future for the children, seeking therapies to deal with the trauma they had suffered. During this phase, Emily learned that the healing process wouldn't be linear. There were ups and downs, moments of progress and setbacks, but with each small step, she saw Jack and Lily becoming stronger, more confident, and most importantly, more capable of believing in a better future. They were starting to open up, express their feelings, and live without the constant fear that had previously accompanied them. And for Emily, this was all she could wish for, that these children finally had the chance for a new beginning. As the months passed, Emily and the children began to adapt to the new life they had built together. However, the weight of the past didn't easily disappear. With each new step, the future seemed like uncharted territory, and the fear that the mistakes of the past would catch up with them was always present. But Emily wasn't willing to let fear control her decisions. She knew that to ensure Jack and Lily had a brighter future, she needed to be strong, not just for them, but also for herself. Trust was being slowly rebuilt, and Emily became more than a social worker or protector. She was now a mother and friend, someone who shared the children's pain and dreams, guiding them towards a better tomorrow. Things started to improve in the boys' lives. Jack, with Emily's support, decided to talk about his fears and the traumas that still haunted him. He opened up to a school counselor, something Emily never imagined possible. Lily, in turn, became more confident, discovering her love for art and participating in school exhibitions. But even with the progress, Emily knew they were still on a long and arduous path. It wasn't an easy journey, and on some days she wondered if she could continue giving them the necessary support. But the sight of them smiling, even if hesitantly, made it all worthwhile. They were growing, becoming stronger and more resilient people. In a moment of reflection, Emily realizes that despite all the mistakes and traumas they faced, she had managed to create a home for these children. She became a better person because of them, learning throughout the process to deal with her own pain and find beauty in small victories. The love she felt for Jack and Lily was no longer just about protection, but about giving them the chance to rewrite their own story. She knew challenges would come, but she was prepared. She felt ready to face any adversity because now she knew she wasn't alone. Jack, Lily, and she formed a family, and together they could overcome anything. After years of struggle, the day finally came. Emily and the boys' lives were about to take a new turn. Carlos, now serving his sentence, had redeemed himself and was ready to face the consequences of his actions. He knew he couldn't erase what he had done, but the time in prison helped him understand the impact of his choices. For Emily, seeing his transformation was one of the most significant victories of this journey. She had given everything for those children, and even knowing that the path to recovery was far from over, she felt an inner peace she had never experienced before. It wasn't about immediate forgiveness or erasing the past, but about recognizing the effort to do what was right, even when everything seemed lost. The boys, with Emily's continued support, were beginning to see the world differently. Jack, once closed off and burdened with pain, was now getting closer to his own identity. He had dreams, plans, and the confidence to pursue them. Lily, who previously lived hidden behind constant fear, now allowed herself to be a child again. Art became her escape valve, and Emily felt proud with every step she took. Each small advance advance in their recovery meant the world. The fight against the past was being won, and every achievement, no matter how small, was proof that healing was possible. Emily's journey now was more than just about helping the boys, but about finding her own healing as well. In a moment of reflection, Emily realizes that life will never be the same again. What started as a mission to help children who were victims of abuse and neglect turned into a story of love, overcoming, and redemption. She became stronger, more confident, and above all, more aware of her power to impact other people's lives. The process of change she went through also reflected in the boys. They grew, but Emily also grew with them. Their love made her look to the future with hope. And even with the challenges that were still to come, she knew that, alongside Jack and Lily, she could face any obstacle. After all the turbulence, Emily finds herself in a new chapter of her life. Jack and Lily are no longer just children she tries to help. Now, they are part of her family, with bonds stronger than any other connection. She begins to realize that the definition of family can be much more complex than she imagined. Biological relatives, past relationships, and the pain of mistakes made are left behind when she looks at Jack and Lily's smiling faces. They looked at her as a mother, and Emily finally understood that by protecting the boys, she had found herself. She no longer saw herself as just a lonely and wounded woman, but as a central figure in the lives of two people who needed her, just as she needed them. However, despite all the achievement, the challenges don't disappear immediately. The wounds of the past were still a reality, and Emily knew that true recovery would be an ongoing process. Each day brought new struggles for Jack and Lily, and Emily knew she needed to be more than a mother to them. She needed to be a constant source of emotional support and stability. They were beginning to adjust to the idea of a more promising future, but Emily knew that the psychological trauma and fear the boys carried wouldn't dissipate so easily. Even so, she dedicated herself to every step, every progress. With every word of support, every gesture of affection, Emily felt she was creating the foundations of a new beginning, where love and trust were beginning to replace fear and pain. The healing process was arduous, but Emily felt a deep fulfillment when she saw Jack opening up to his feelings, or when Lily, with a genuine smile, shared her artistic creations. Emily knew that despite the obstacles, there was a light at the end of the tunnel. The work wasn't done, but their journey had reached a stage where hope became more tangible. She knew the future would still be challenging, with many issues to be resolved, but she also knew that the foundation was there. A family united by love, by overcoming, and by the courage to face adversities together. She had achieved something more precious than any material thing. She had rebuilt her life and, most importantly, helped other lives to rise again. As the years pass, Emily, Jack, and Lily finally managed to find stability in their lives. The house, once a space of uncertainties, now reflects a sense of home, welcoming the family with laughter and quiet moments. The boys, now older and more confident, begin to forge their own paths. Jack, with his focused and determined look, starts thinking about his future. He dedicates himself to his studies, and Emily sees a strength there that she never imagined he would have. Lily, in turn, blossoms even more in her artistic passions, participating in contests and expressing herself authentically. Emily, observing her children, realizes that the pain and traumas of the past haven't defined them. They are finally creating a new identity, far from the shadows that once surrounded them. What began as an act of compassion, an attempt to save two lives, has now transformed into a deep and unbreakable bond. Emily never imagined that by helping Jack and Lily, she would also be helping herself. She grew as a person, rediscovered the meaning of family and forgiveness, not only towards others, but towards herself. Each of their victories was hers too. Every day, Emily felt that the scars of the past were becoming more distant, replaced by new moments of happiness and fulfillment. The journey wasn't easy, but it was the most rewarding of her life. And now, she knew that the difficulties of the past were finally behind all of them. After all the turbulence, Emily finds herself in a new chapter of her life. Jack and Lily are no longer just children she tries to help. help, now they are part of her family, with bonds stronger than any other connection. She begins to realize that the definition of family can be much more complex than she imagined. Biological relatives, past relationships, and the pain of mistakes made are left behind when she looks at Jack and Lily's smiling faces. They looked at her as a mother, and Emily finally understood that by protecting the boys, she had found herself. She no longer saw herself as just a lonely and wounded woman, but as a central figure in the lives of two people who needed her just as she needed them. However, despite all the achievement, the challenges don't disappear immediately. The wounds of the past were still a reality, and Emily knew that true recovery would be an ongoing process. Each day brought new struggles for Jack and Lily, and Emily knew she needed to be more than a mother to them. She needed to be a constant source of emotional support and stability. They were beginning to adjust to the idea of a more promising future, but Emily knew that the psychological trauma and fear the boys carried wouldn't dissipate so easily. Even so, she dedicated herself to every step, every progress. With every word of support, every gesture of affection, Emily felt she was creating the foundations of a new beginning, where love and trust were beginning to replace fear and pain. The healing process was arduous, but Emily felt a deep fulfillment when she saw Jack opening up to his feelings, or when Lily, with a genuine smile, shared her artistic creation. Emily knew that despite the obstacles, there was a light at the end of the tunnel. The work wasn't done, but their journey had reached a stage where hope became more tangible. She knew the future would still be challenging, with many issues to be resolved, but she also knew that the foundation was there, a family united by love, by overcoming, and by the courage to face adversities together. She had achieved something more precious than any material thing. She had rebuilt her life and, most importantly, helped other lives to rise again. As the years pass, Emily, Jack, and Lily finally managed to find stability in their lives. The house, once a space of uncertainties, now reflects a sense of home, welcoming the family with laughter and quiet moments. The boys, now older and more confident, begin to forge their own paths. Jack, with his focused and determined look, starts thinking about his future. He dedicates himself to his studies, and Emily sees a strength there that she never imagined he would have. Lily, in turn, blossoms even more in her artistic passions, participating in contests and expressing herself authentically. Emily, observing her children, realizes that the pain and traumas of the past haven't defined them. They are, finally, creating a new identity, far from the shadows that once surrounded them. What began as an act of compassion, an attempt to save two lives, has now transformed into a deep and unbreakable bond. Emily never imagined that by helping Jack and Lily, she would also be helping herself. She grew as a person, rediscovered the meaning of family and forgiveness, not only towards others, but towards herself. Each of their victories was hers too. Every day, Emily felt that the scars of the past were becoming more distant, replaced by new moments of happiness and fulfillment. The journey wasn't easy, but it was the most rewarding of her life. And now she knew that the difficulties of the past were finally behind all of them.